So we had a really terrific afternoon talking about food as medicine. That's gonna continue tomorrow with a closed-door meeting of healthcare leaders, advocacy, vendors, policy to talk about food as medicine and really dig in to some of these challenges. And we're also going to be publishing a proceedings from the meeting, so please look forward to that. A lot of the conversation was about problem solving. How do we deal with all the problems we have? What are the dire problems we face? And sometimes I think we need to also step back and celebrate success. And I don't think we do that enough in nutrition and in academics. There have been a lot of successes. And so that's really what this closing part of the program is about celebrating successes. And so we're really going to be celebrating key leaders and key community organizations who have advanced nutrition security in their work. This is the third Jean Meyer Prize for Excellence in Nutrition, Science, and Policy. The Jean Meyer Prize, which is supported generously by John Hancock, is awarded every 2 years. It's a $100,000 prize that's given for different key topical achievements every 2 years. The award is named in honor of the founder of our school, Dr. Jean Meyer. Dr. Jean Meyer was the 10th president of Tufts University. He was the principal architect of the 1969 White House Conference on Food, Nutrition, and Health. And his quote is outside in our vestibule when you come in. He said, "Nutrition is not a discipline, it's an agenda." And so Jean Meyer really firmly believed in combining, science and biochemistry with agricultural science, policy science, economists, social science, behavior change, health equity, sustainability, and action, and taking that to action. And so that's really the DNA of our school, to be multidisciplinary and to be action-oriented, sort of the opposite of the traditional ivory tower approach. And so the Jean Meyer Prize, which we want to give every 2 years, we know there are other prizes. There's the terrific Iowa Food Prize and other awards, but there's really no award for science and policy achievement in nutrition. And so that's really the point of the Jean Meyer Prize. In 2018, we presented the first Jean Meyer Prize to four individuals and groups for advancing healthier food for America's children, including passage of the Healthy, Hunger-Free Kids Act. And actually, many of them are here today. That included Senator Tom Harkin, Secretary of Agriculture Tom Vilsack, the Center for Science in the Public Interest, and Mission Readiness. 2 years later, in 2020, with the pandemic upon us, we presented the second Jean Meyer Prize to three organizations for the response to the shattered food system in COVID and what they did in COVID. That included the Heal Food Alliance, the James Beard Foundation, and World Central Kitchen. And so now we're honoring the 2022 prize in the spring now to four exceptional individuals for their career achievements in advancing nutrition security. And we're going to have very short award ceremony to really be able to go into a panel discussion and really hear from these leaders. We also, for the first time, we wanted to, beyond giving the prize, we wanted to honor community organizations in Boston and around the world that are doing real on-the-ground work in advancing nutrition security. So beyond the four prize winners, we have four organizations that are going to be honored, and they're also receiving both gifts, cash gifts to their organizations, and also a supported internship from one of our grad students to work with them and advance their agenda. And so that's going to be the opening. You're going to hear more about our terrific winners and hear from them directly. I really want to thank, again, John Hancock for supporting this prize through an unrestricted gift because of their vision that healthier food, healthier living is really critical for all of us. And so with that, I want to welcome Lindsay Hansen, the head of behavioral insurance, global strategy for Manulife and John Hancock.
Great. Thank you, Dari. Thank you for the kind introduction, and what an amazing energy in this room. I've had the opportunity to just see people coming in and out, and just phenomenal. I was here back in 2018 when we presented the first award, and happy to see some of those recipients here today. So it's wonderful to be here. John Hancock is such a proud sponsor of the partnership that we have with the Friedman School. We've been able to do some amazing things, and I know that we're just at the cusp of what we can be doing together. I want to add my congratulations to the impressive group of winners, and I've had the opportunity to meet two of you today and looking forward to meeting the others. Dr. Bertman, Dr. Blige, Dr. Elifouassi, and Dr. Hesterman. Congratulations on your award. In addition to our award recipients, as Dari mentioned, we're also focused in on certain organizations that are represented here today and that are being honored. About Fresh, Community Servings, Center Worldwide, and Valid Nutrition. Thank you for your continued efforts towards creating a world in which everyone has access to food of prominence of health and well-being. At John Hancock, we know that nutrition is important, which is why we've changed the game as to how we bring nutrition to our clients and to their families. Through our John Hancock Vitality Program, we've combined traditional life insurance and financial security with the importance of nutrition being at the center of that. How can we help bring nutrition and fresh produce to our customers in a way that is easier for them, that they're able to take advantage of it? So it's really been a tremendous partnership, and happy to be here. That's how we've been able to bring what we call shared value insurance to life. It's not only beneficial for us as an organization, but it's beneficial for our partners, it's beneficial for our customers, and it's beneficial for society as a whole. With Vitality, we're helping our customers live a longer, healthier, and better life, and nutrition is one of our main pillars and focuses of that. I'm equally proud of the work that we've done together to advocate for the sensible solutions in the systemic challenges that face society today, including the need for greater federal nutrition research, coordination, and investments. And this includes the task force that was coveted by the Friedman School, the White House Conference for Health, Hunger, and Nutrition. Thank you, Dari. Thank you, Tufts. And thank all of you for the tremendous partnership. And congratulations again to our winners.
And you know, just the fact that a leading insurance company has a head of behavioral insurance shows you how advanced they are. And you know, I should tell you the story that John Hancock launched Vitality, which is a program that originated in South Africa, and John Hancock brought it to the US to really encourage their clients to eat healthier, eat better, including paying for healthier food. They're really the first produce prescription program, even though we didn't call it that in 2018 when it was launched. And what's amazing is it was one product of 100, 200 different insurance products you could choose. It's been so successful that you can't buy a John Hancock insurance product anymore that's not a Vitality product. Vitality has gone across all of John Hancock, and now Manulife, which is the parent company, which is huge insurance, not only in Canada but also across Asia, is really coming on and wanting to see how they can extend Vitality and sort of behavior change through healthier living to all of insurance. So it's really a terrific story, and congratulations, Lindsay, on all your work. So first, we didn't have time, unfortunately. We have such amazing organizations and winners. We don't have time for all of them to speak. And so for our community organizations, we have 2 different recognition videos where they're going to tell you a little bit about the work that they do. And the 4 were mentioned: About Fresh, Community Servings, Concern Worldwide, and Valid Nutrition. They're all incredible examples of innovation in advancing nutrition security. And so I'll cede the floor to the first video. Thank you.
Community Servings is focused on engaging the community to provide scratch-made, medically tailored meals delivered to the homes of people who are critically and chronically ill and can't feed themselves or feed their families. But we look at it more holistically than that. We are partnering with local farms to cut down on waste in the system by bringing surplus produce into our kitchens. We're doing major research with Tufts and other partners. We're doing policy work, and we also do job training for people who are coming out of the criminal justice system or out of the recovery community to teach them how to work in the food business and support their families. So we really try to leverage our kitchens in as many directions as possible to address nutrition insecurity in all of its forms in the community.
We started as a food security and nutrition programming kind of organization, and we've stayed true to that root. We have the CMAM, so it's Community Management of Acute Malnutrition. One of the things we're working on now is CMAM Surge, which is something that concerns really pushing. And it's essentially working with government structures and local organizations and things like that to scale up programming and supply chains and everything that go with it before the nutrition crisis kind of happens. So one of the problems with this is they say that only about 20% of children that need nutrition programming get it for a wide variety of reasons. So we're thinking that if you can scale CMAM programming, if you could scale nutrition programming at the beginning, of a cyclical emergency, like if there's always nutrition problems in July, why don't you scale up healthcare services and healthcare workers and make sure there's plenty of stock and supplies and all these things, and start doing more testing and treating and all these things before that happens. You can prevent a lot of this from happening, or you can reach more people at the same time.
We can't divorce the importance of food on culture and how we connect with people from health. Food is really important to not only health, but to culture and to our happiness, to how we connect with people. So we really wrap those things into how we think about nutrition insecurity, in addition to access to food for the sake of health. The original program that we developed, Fresh Truck, is a mobile market. We convert trucks into grocery stores that we operate across Boston to get healthy food into neighborhoods where there's not, reliable, affordable, healthy food options. And as an outgrowth of that, we developed a much larger technology-enabled food prescription platform called Fresh Connect, which makes it possible for health plans, providers, community-based organizations, and housing agencies to administer a Fresh Connect debit card that we built to cover the cost of healthy food at a national network of grocery retailers in all 50 states.
We know that the main problems in sub-Saharan Africa with nutrition security are that farmers monocrop crops like maize. They don't have a wide diversity of crops. And we also know that they have poor markets for their produce. And so we directly intervene in a market way to create recipes that create demand for a much broader range of ingredients. And we worked with organizations such as ICRASAT to get agricultural advice of what are the best ingredients or best crops to grow in somewhere like Malawi, for example. And then we develop products that use those crops. So we have created a market with the CMAM model for these ready-to-use therapeutic foods. And we want to make them locally in developing countries using ingredients that are grown locally and choosing ingredients that can serve to diversify agriculture, thereby improving resilience and ultimately nutrition security. It's a business-driven change that it's sustainable because it's based on business principles rather than an aid or charity-based change, which is based on the motives of the giver rather than actually what is directly relevant to those people affected by these problems.
So we'll hear more about each of the four organizations in a second video after a couple of the awards. But again, I think you applauded, but let's just really give a round of applause to About Fresh, Community Servings, Concerned Worldwide, and Valid Nutrition. Thank you. So our first awardee is Robert Bertram. The individuals and organizations we recognize today were chosen by a panel of experts, including folks at the Friedman School and outside the school. And Dr. Bertram was really all the awardees were really incredible choices and easy choices. He's the chief scientist in USAID's Bureau for Resilience and Food Security, where he serves as the key advisor on a range of technical and program issues to advance global food security and nutrition. USAID for many, many decades has focused effectively on advancing food security. And Dr. Bertram really has injected into all of USAID the additional focus of really thinking about diet quality and nutrition. In his role, he leads USAID's evidence-based efforts to advance research, technology, and implementation in support of the US government's investments to advance hunger and security, Feed the Future. Feed the Future was President Obama's signature initiative to really think about how to take US aid for food to the next level, beyond sort of just supplying aid packets of food as needed. And Feed the Future focuses on not only giving access in times of crisis, but the reduction of poverty and the reduction of malnutrition through inclusive agriculture-led growth and increased access to affordable quality diets. So please join me in congratulating Dr. Robert Bertram, who will come up and also say a few words.
Thank you very much, Dari and Lindsay, for this honor. I'm really very grateful. A friend said to me when I told him about this, he said, one of the best things that can happen to you is to be recognized by your peers. And he was right. But I can't, do I need to use this? Okay, sorry. Loud voice. Not that I have thought of my friends and colleagues here at the Friedman School as peers. To the contrary, I've looked at them as leaders, as mentors, as teachers, and sage advisors. My role at USAID is basically to promote evidence-based approaches in the US government's global food security program, Feed the Future, including for our nutrition goals. So you can imagine how important it is to have a cadre of excellence here at Tufts, how that has been so critical to that task, including the Feed the Future Nutrition Innovation Lab, and now the new Food Systems for Nutrition Innovation Lab, both of which are supported by USAID. The holistic approach to nutrition, spanning biophysical and social sciences, research, and the evidence expertise here at Tufts are truly unique. I know it's a global team, but I have to call out my special gratitude to Eileen Kennedy, B. Rogers, Patrick Webb, Shabani Ghosh, Will Masters, Liz Marino Costello, Robin Shrestha, and Jeff Griffiths. But your influence here at the Friedman School goes way beyond me and my colleagues. Everywhere I go now around the world, I meet Friedman grads, and they are guiding global programming in nutrition. So congratulations to you for that. You're giving us that next generation of thought leaders and leading to huge impact. I'll wrap up by saying that I've always believed, as an agriculturalist, investment in agriculture and food and international development hasn't been about the tremendous economic and poverty reduction impacts, great as they are, but rather about the intolerable specter of hunger and malnutrition, something we can and should end as enshrined in Sustainable Development Goal 2, which includes elimination of malnutrition. Tufts University and the Friedman School have helped us fully realize the scope of human impacts of malnutrition. The crisis and the cost of child stunting, still affecting nearly 20% of all children around the world, and the not so hidden scourge of micronutrient malnutrition, which affects billions. The global community needs to keep this deeper understanding of undernutrition and other malnutrition challenges squarely in view in our international development investments. Understanding the human face and the toll of malnutrition is crucial to keeping our eyes on the prize and to achieve a well-nourished world. Your continued strategic and evidence-based leadership is essential for the world to succeed in meeting that goal, and I believe you're up to the job. Thank you. And one last postscript, looking about science and nutrition and thinking about Jean Mayer, who in my early career, I was very aware of him. I'm going to donate the prize to something called Hands-On Plant Science, which is working in inner city schools to bring plant science, but they aren't including nutrition. So this is going to fund the inclusion of nutrition modules as part of that training program. Thank you.
Great, thank you. It is a pleasure to present this award to our second recipient, Dr. Sarah Bleish. Dr. Bleish holds multiple appointments at Harvard University, where she is the inaugural Vice Provost of Special Projects. With more than 180 peer-reviewed publications, she has a policy expert and researcher who specializes in diet-related diseases, food insecurity, and racial inequality. A signature theme throughout her research is an interest in asking simple, meaningful questions that can fill important knowledge gaps to help inform policy. Prior to this, Dr. Bleish served in the Biden administration as the Director of Nutrition Security and Health Equality at the USDA's Food and Nutrition Service, and as the Senior Advisor for the COVID-19 in the Office and Secretary at the USDA. Please join me in congratulating Dr. Sarah Bleish.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Dari. Thank you, Lindsay. I have been in this room many times, but today is really special. I am honored to receive this award, both to have it, but also to receive it in such good company. I have been in the nutrition policy space for about 2 decades, and I came to it through a conversation with my grandfather. So he was, this is my mother's father. He was a corn farmer in Maryland, didn't have a lot of formal education. And so when I got into a PhD program, it was a huge deal for him. He was extremely proud. I was living in Los Angeles, and I was driving across country through Maryland, where I'm from, up to Boston. My grandfather didn't talk a lot. He had really big hands, and he put his arm around me, and he pulled me aside during that cross-country trip when I was visiting on my way up here, and he said, "Sarah, don't go up there, up to Boston, and get uppity," which essentially is, you know, don't forget where you come from. Don't forget who you are. And it was a bit of in one ear and out the other at the time. And then it's a few years in, it's time for me to do my dissertation. And I had an advisor who was pushing me to do a topic that I didn't really understand and I didn't really like. And I knew that I went into public health because I wanted to do applied work. And what he was pushing me toward was not it. So one day we're having a bit of a heated conversation, and he looks at me and he's like, "What are you going to do for your dissertation?" Really sharply. And I said, "I'm going to study obesity." And he said, "Why?" And I said, "Because my grandfather will understand." And I have yet to come across a person of any education background on a plane, on a train, on a bus, who I can't have an interesting conversation and learn something about obesity and food and nutrition policy. And so throughout my career, I've had the opportunity to work on amazing research projects with fantastic colleagues. I've had a chance to do 2 tours of duty in government, first with the Obama administration, most recently with the Biden administration. And for me, the opportunity to work on the federal nutrition assistance programs that I received as a kid. So I'm a SNAP baby, I'm a WIC baby, I'm a school meal baby. It was such a privilege. So I will accept this award on behalf of my grandfather and on behalf of all the people whose lives are better off for ever stronger nutrition policy. Thank you very much.
Our third awardee is Dr. Ismahain Elouafi. She is the chief scientist of the FAO, the Food and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations. With nearly 2 decades of experience in agricultural research and development on multiple continents, Asia, Africa, and the Middle East, she is a strong advocate for diversifying neglected and underutilized crops that bring health and economic empowerment to people in need. She's internationally known as well for her work on promoting the use of non-fresh water in agriculture and the empowerment of women in science. Her contributions to science and policy have been recognized with a number of prestigious awards and accolades, and we're really delighted to honor her here today for her achievements in nutrition security. Please join me in congratulating Dr. El-Alafi.
Good evening, everybody. Really not easy to talk after Rob and and you, my dear. So, Sarah. So, for me, really, when I think about nutrition, I always imagine a plate full of colors. So the plate gonna have a lot of vegetables, fruit, a lot of nuts, proteins. So it's about color and diversity. And the message I wanna leave with you today, it's really the importance of going back to diversification. And that's really what I believe in and what I have been pushing in all my career. So thank you very much for this recognition. It's really a pleasure to be back in Boston. It's a pleasure to see the energy in this room. It's so nice to be with intellectually enlightened people that really believe in the connection between health and nutrition, because it wasn't the case. We have been going through years where everything was in a silos, and maybe we are still doing it in university, whereby we are teaching people too much to go in depth, but not enough to go across and understand the subject. So for me, really everything is in nature, and nature, it's multiplicity, it's synergies, it's 1,000 and 1,000,000 of species and of microorganisms, and we tend to really simplify everything. And I think we shouldn't. We shouldn't simplify it because the challenge is big, and because unfortunately till today, we have still, and Rob said the numbers, we have still 3 billion people that cannot afford a healthy diet. We have still too many kids that never develop to their full potential, and that's not only in their body, it's also in their mental capacity and intellectual capacity. So definitely, for me, this is an award that really warms my heart. Thank you so much. And also an award that reminds me that really it is still necessary to push the bar and bring the disciplines together. And that's really what we are trying to do at FAO, whereby really now we're talking food system, but we're also talking between agencies. It's not only agriculture, it's not only health, it's not only environment, it's all together, because if we don't bring those stories together, we can't move forward. So thank you very much. I'm gonna donate this award to a small community-based co-op in Morocco called Ahl Youssoufia, which really help women to have a higher income and to have a job, not so much charity, but rather to have a job around creating handmade food that they can distribute, but also looking at neglected species around that very, very harsh environment to make different type of couscous. So couscous of quinoa, couscous of caroub, couscous, other couscous that are not only from wheat or barley. Thank you very much.
I'm pleased to present the final award to Dr. Oren Hesterman. Dr. Hesterman is the founder and resident champion for the Food Fair Network, a national leader in sustainable agriculture and food systems, and a respected partner for policymakers, philanthropic leaders, and advocates, and a pioneer in building the good food movement as we know it today. For the past 13 years, Dr. Hesterman has led Fair Food Network in its mission to grow community, health, wealth through food. Under his leadership, Fair Food Network has built and scaled food-based solutions that improve health food access for communities and economic equity for farmers and small businesses. Unfortunately, Dr. Hesterman is unable to make it today as he came down with COVID just yesterday, but I'm happy to report he's feeling fine. Instead, he has actually taken the time to pre-record his acceptance of this award. So while he's not here in person, he is actually tuned in live. So please join me in congratulating and welcoming him with a round of applause.
I want to thank the Friedman School and John Hancock for this prestigious award. I'm honored to be among a tremendous group of award recipients. You know, for more than 50 years of my career in sustainable agriculture and food systems, I've always believed that when we start with food, anything is possible. I've thought many times over the course of my career the ways in which food is medicine. Food is medicine, of course, for our own bodies, but it is the same medicine needed to heal the Earth's body, to heal our communities and our economic body. It nourishes us, keeps us strong. It centers us in our communities and culture and is key to a resilient society, especially in a time of climate change. I'm proud of the work that many of us have done together over the past decade to mainstream food as medicine programs, bringing more fruits and vegetables within the reach of the people who need it most. I think especially of the USDA's Gus Schumacher Nutrition Incentive Program, named after a dear friend to so many of us. It continues to expand the reach of food as medicine. Hundreds of SNAP nutrition incentive and produce prescription programs are now operating in every state. This was something unthinkable even just a decade ago. GusNIP, as it's known, is the most concrete investment in food as medicine we have. It was hard-won policy, and it's working. In fact, I want to give a shout out to Carmen, who's here from the Gretchen Swanson Center for Nutrition, our partner at Fair Food Network in evaluation for the GusNIP program nationally. They recently reported that with GusNIP nutrition incentive participants, they eat more fruits and vegetables than the average adult American, and they're decreasing food and nutrition insecurity. This is so meaningful. These programs are working, and they are an essential part of food as medicine. I want to challenge us to think about the role that capital M medicine plays after people get sick, but also the role for upstream investments like those pioneered by SNAP incentives that keep people from getting sick in the first place. Many of you have heard me say this before, but I'll say it again. We can pay the farmer today or the doctor tomorrow. Leveraging SNAP incentives, produce prescriptions, and medically tailored meals together as part of food as medicine is powerful. We have to be thinking of upstream solutions as well as downstream as a comprehensive approach, helping people access the fruits and vegetables they need and want to keep their bodies healthy. As I accept this award gratefully and reflect on how far this field has come, I am filled with hope for the future. I want to thank you again, Friedman School and John Hancock, for this award. I want to thank all of you for your continued work to advance food as medicine.
So I was personally really bummed to hear that Oren got sick. I was looking forward to seeing him, but he's doing okay, but obviously couldn't travel. So we want to return to our community organization, and it's really, these are organizations like many in this room, like many around the country, who really don't get thanked for their work enough. And so I think it's just really important to highlight. There are so many that we could have chosen, but these four are incredibly deserving and highlight the exceptional work they're doing to advance nutrition security. So please join me in watching the second video.
For the team at Community Servings, our ambition is to be best in class when it comes to nutrition and medically tailored meals. So to receive recognition from Tufts and the Friedman School and their colleagues is so validating for those who are working in the trenches, whether they're registered dietitians, counseling clients, or people peeling carrots, and people driving trucks. And knowing that our work is respected at the level of this award is incredibly important for our team, but also for our policy work. For community servings, having a close partnership with Tufts and the Friedman School really puts us on the map, but also gives us a bigger megaphone.
Within our organization specifically, we are so focused on nutrition, and it is such a part of our DNA that having recognition like this really it was a great feeling within it. I think it's really important to show how organizations can do really good programming in really tough areas. Having this prize here focused on an organization that does focus on the communities like concern, I think it's really good. But in general, nutrition and food security is so an oft-cited need of communities. So I think the communities are happy anytime that there is increased awareness and push on these.
We're doing everything we can right now to build awareness of what's possible, in the way of this future state of nutrition security and health equity. And we have a lot of conviction as an organization at About Fresh that we're in a position to deliver on that vision. And we're small, we're a small, scrappy team. We have a lot of star power. And so to be able to earn the recognition, through this award and the endorsement of the Friedman School in the process is really powerful to just advance our work and our convictions around, how it is that we have the potential to contribute to this movement. The John Mayer Prize really just is an opportunity for us to just to elevate our work, which we think is really, really important. So we're really grateful for the opportunity, for the trust, and just for the honor that the prize brings on. And it's going to be a really meaningful boost to our ability to engage and show up in the way that we want to in this work.
It adds to our credibility. It helps people to realize that, we're not just a fly-by-night, little band of revolutionaries. We have a fairly unusual take on nutrition security in terms of a very business-orientated model that will create sustainable economic change through engagement of business. And the fact that the judges have seen fit to recognize that model as being a valuable way forward, I think it will encourage other people. It will encourage other people to move out of the traditional charity-based aid approach and move into more innovative thinking around how, in practice, business can engage to work with the development sector to end these problems.
Time for audience questions, which includes online questions. And so if you have questions online, there should be a way to enter them in, and we'll get those questions. So thank you all for being here, and congratulations. Really just incredible work. So I think the first question, which I'll just pose to each of you, and maybe we'll start to my right and work our way down, is, I think while nations and governments have focused on hunger and food security and adequate calories for decades, necessarily, 28 million people died in World War II from famine, right? This was not a theoretical construct. While they focused on calories and hunger, the core importance of nutrition was often missed or in the background. But now it seems to be advancing finally to the forefront. So from each of your perspectives, what have been some of the biggest accomplishments or milestones to advancing nutrition security that you see that have occurred over just the past few years?
Thanks, Derek.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, each of you
Forgetting
get a
that.
microphone,
Um, It's more than a few years ago, but it's had such an impact that I'm going to mention it, and that is the Lancet papers that came out and basically showed that even if we did everything right in terms of nutrition-specific interventions, we would not achieve more than about a 20% reduction in child stunting with its tremendous long-term effects that were referred to. Uh, so that, I think, was a huge challenge to everybody in working in water and clean water and sanitation, working in agriculture and food. And so I think what we saw in USAID and in Feed the Future was the creation of two top-line metrics: reduction in poverty at the population level and reduction in stunting at the population level. That was a huge bar, but it really focused people to try to really understand how to get at this multi-sectoral approach to alleviating malnutrition. Another development that has come up, and we still have a long way to go, but is gender and gender equity and women's empowerment. And I can remember, Eileen, are you still here? Probably 30 years ago or more than 30 years ago, you told me about Kenya and what happens if women got the money to make decisions with, or if men got the money. And guys, we don't do well. So in terms of child nutrition outcomes. So I think that's not just about nutrition, that's about economic growth as well. Empowering women is critical in food and agriculture. So I would say the metric, the study, and then what all the creativity, including here at Tufts through the innovation labs and other work you do, that came to really drive this more holistic approach.
Sarah.
So this is a great question. First and foremost, I would say that the White House conference, this obviously the one that came after the one that John Mayer helped do more than 50 years ago, that has unlocked enormous creativity and activated the food nutrition policy community in a way that it hasn't been in decades. And that's obviously the White House Conference on Hunger, Nutrition, and Health, with the goals of ending hunger and reducing diet-related diseases and disparities by 2030. There is so much energy pushing toward that from the federal government, from outside the federal government, and it's extremely exciting. The second thing is how, from my opinion, is how USDA has widened its aperture beyond its decades-long and important focus on food security to also focus on nutrition security, which is consistent and equitable access to healthy, safe, and affordable food that is essential to good health and well-being. And that is in large part thanks to the intellectual work of Dari, who has led the charge on the concept. But that is a key sea change that has happened with the federal government saying, we don't just care about people having food in their fridge. We care that they are getting high quality food that is helping their health and their well-being. And the third thing is that in the last 2 years, during this administration, there have been incredible advances in nutrition policy. And there's a whole long list that I could go through, but I'll just flag a few. So one is the reevaluation of the Thrifty Food Plan, which is the basis for the SNAP benefit. That has permanently increased the size of the SNAP benefit by 21% or $36 per person per month. That is significant. Another are the proposed rules around the WIC food package, and a third are the proposed rules around school meal standards, which for the first time include added sugar. And the list goes on and on and on. These are really, really impressive changes that have happened in a very short amount of time.
Terrific. It's great to hear, some of the international perspective and the domestic perspective, and actually the confluence of those perspectives, even with dramatically different socio-economic development of the nations, right? Facing the same problems, but moving toward the same solutions. So would love to hear your thoughts, Ismail.
Thank you very much, Dari. I think worldwide, we are still lagging behind. I mean, the numbers speaks. Maybe we're seeing a better convergence of food security and nutrition security, which is a must. We can't really do one without doing the other one, but we are still lagging behind. I think for me, if I think of what really was game changer, it's the 1,000 Days program that came about, and we understand that's very important to make sure that we provide to a pregnant woman a good diet, a healthy diet, and then the first days in the life of a kid. And now there is studies that talks about 5 to 6 as well. So you go beyond the 1,000 days till the kids is about 5 to 6. So that shows us a little bit of a better conversion towards food and nutrition security. The other areas, if I think about what happens in science, it will be the program on biofortification that was supported by the USAID and a few others. So biofortification really helped a lot. So biofortification, it's basically looking at how to increase mostly zinc, vitamin A, and iron in some staple foods. And it was a program that was led by CGR Center, the International Potato Centers, with IFPRI here in Washington, and with SIAT as well. So the biofortification made a huge difference in terms of getting people out of malnutrition. So they worked mostly on millet, but also on wheat, on potato, sweet potato, and a few other crops. So that we have very clear data that shows really how, for example, iron millet helped a lot in India, or how vitamin A sweet potato had really some impact on some population in Africa. The other areas, I think it's really the idea of going back beyond the staple crops. Staple crops are very important when we think about worldwide poverty and malnutrition, but also we are seeing now a better understanding of the need to go to more local species, to take the local knowledge and use it really to advance other species. And in diversification, just to share with you, as FAO, what we do with the international years. So in 2013, we had the International Year of Quinoa. In 2016, we have the International Year of Pulses. And this year is the International Year of Millet. And those are examples of crops or species that some of the government are pushing for. And the idea is really to bring many. We don't need 3, we don't need 10, we need thousands. And just to remind you, colleagues, just on the plant species, we have about 400,000 species. And right now in the market, we have only 125. We have only 3 that give us 40% of our need. We have only 8 animal species that give us most of our proteins. So when we think about really the diversity on the field or in the planet, in the planet, really we are using very little. The other area really that I want to mention, it's really understanding what food is. How do we absorb it? How do we use it? Why is it different from one person to the other? And here I think nutrition and precision nutrition, a combination of nutrition with the production, understanding better those implications, and go beyond really the simplification of biochemical pathways. So we have mostly 3 that we are talking about. It's not true. So there's much more. We don't know them, but they exist. And there is so much variables that makes every person different when it comes to taking food and taking the nutrient from the food. And here I think really it's very important to mention the periodical table of food initiative led by Rockefeller. And really, it's really good because it's diving into the food. It's understanding better what does it mean having a banana or having a tagine from Morocco or a couscous. So it's very important to understand, and it's very important to go deeper in layers, because once we understand it, we could potentially go back to really the policies and put the right policies in place. And I was just discussing with Rob before that really most of the malnutrition we have now, particularly in countries like the US, are very much due to the subsidies programs that exist. Worldwide also, we went for these staple crops because they are very much subsidized. So the market price does not reflect the reality. And the only way to flip it over, it's again to discuss subsidies and get better subsidies for nutrition in the US and worldwide. Thank you, Dave.
So thank you for all those reflections. I'm an optimist about where we need to go. You mentioned, and also Martin Richards mentioned, the very conscious creation of our current food system, right? This was not an accident. This was not an industry plot. Our food system, modern food system, was created really over maybe 50 years, just from 1950 to 2000, with the very intentional goal of getting calories to a world with a booming population. The population of the Earth went from 1.6 billion in 1900 to 6 billion in 2000. The more people were born in the last century than in all of prior human history combined. And there was very real fears that, you know, 1 billion people might starve. And so this monocropping and loss of biodiversity and these farms you see, you know, with acres and acres and acres of a single species was a very conscious creation to address hunger. And the vitamins, the focus on fortification of a handful of vitamins was based on the science that was available in the 1940s and 1950s. And so when you walk down the cereal aisle today and you see these, you know, boxes and boxes of really inexpensive, well, not that inexpensive, shelf-stable, starchy foods that are fortified with vitamins, that was a conscious creation to address calories and vitamin deficiencies. And it worked. Hunger and vitamin deficiency has been dramatically reduced, although not eliminated. And so I'm optimistic because if we could do that in 50 years, completely transform the global food supply, we can do it again. And we can do it again with now what we learned. We don't want to go backwards and lose what we've gained, but now move forward to nutritious crops that are good for people and the earth. And so with that in mind, you know, given kind of how we got here, what do you think we need to do now at either a national level or an international level to really make progress on advancing nutrition security? And maybe I'll start with Sarah and then go to Ismail and then to Robert. Yeah.
Thanks. So there are a number of things that come to mind. I think for the researchers in the room, I think it is really important that we not let the need to develop a nutrition security measure get in the way of the important policy progress that is happening. Yes, we do not have a single gold standard measure for nutrition security, but that doesn't mean that we can't push forward on the policy side and leverage the existing measures of diet quality that we have, like the Healthy Eating Index. So this is an area where I think it's really important that we do not get in our own way, and at the same time recognize there's a lot of good work happening by Dari and others to develop the measures that we need, but that takes time, and population health cannot wait for that. The second thing is that, you know, with this current Congress, with moving towards 2024, it's likely we're not going to see big changes happening in nutrition policy on the federal side. So it's going to be really important that we use legislative vehicles like the Farm Bill to preserve and protect the really important gains that have happened. It's okay if we don't continue to make a huge amount of progress. It's not okay if we backslide against all the important progress that has happened over the past 2 years. The third thing is it's really important that nutrition not just look to nutrition for opportunities for advancement. Right now, the food as medicine movement is such a critical bridge between the healthcare side of the house and the food side of the house. And that is so important for pushing things forward. If you look at the national strategy from the White House Conference on Hunger, Nutrition, and Health, from my opinion, one of the most exciting things there is the push toward more 1115 waivers in the Medicaid program, which is basically allowing states to do innovative things to bring nutritious food to Medicaid recipients. There are 90 million of them. It's more than twice as many as SNAP. If we have more states adopting that, it can really be a game changer. The more that Health and Human Services or HHS leans in, the more that healthcare leans in, it is going to make important differences over time. And so bridging those communities is going to be critical for progress. And the last thing I would say is that with anything, inertia is sort of inevitable. There is a huge amount of momentum right now, and it's going to be important that we maintain that. Given where we are with the current Congress, it's going to be really important that people don't just look to the federal government for change, but that the private sector steps up, that philanthropy steps up, that NGOs step up. It is happening, but it needs to persist if we're going to maintain the gains that we have right now. It truly is, in the nutrition policy space, it is a national movement, and we want to maintain that excitement.
Terrific, yeah. It's really a potential tipping point in the United States, and there's other things going on in other nations, but actually this is maybe one place around really a holistic approach to nutrition with the new national strategy that maybe the university, maybe Ghana is also, you know, there as well with a holistic approach. There aren't many nations with a holistic approach to address hunger and nutrition. So if we can make it work with the people in this room and the people, you know, online to make sure that we keep our elected officials, state officials, private organizations, foundations accountable and really moving forward, we could really make a difference. So Ismail, your thoughts, on where we need to go, what we need to do.
So maybe on the global side, first maybe take food as medicine worldwide. I'm really impressed with the discussion I heard today. It's really nice to see so many people from health talking about food and nutrition and vice versa. So I think taking this concept worldwide is very important. So the US has malnutrition issues, but when you compare it with any other developing country, it's really a tiny problem in comparison with others. Maybe the second thing that we need to do is really work again with the developing world to transform their agri-food system, to help them. Like in one of the videos, I remember in Sub-Sahara, he was showing that there's very little or very few varieties or species. That's not the history of that place, wherever it is. Like he was talking about Malawi, but Malawi is a very diverse country. It's exactly what you mentioned, Dari, that 50 years of monoculture and a little bit of the global market becoming much more important than local market, that's really the shift that happens that let people go that path. So maybe working with the developing world through USAID and other programs to really bring back the importance of the local market, the importance of fresh food, the importance of diversification again. And this is very much needed and very much pushed by international development agencies like USAID and others. So we need really to bring back the idea of doing it locally, not only in terms of production, but also in terms of processing, in terms of market. And that's really gonna cut on emission. It's gonna help us with the climate change adaptation, etc. It's gonna develop economic wealth locally and so on and so forth. So I think that localization, which is not against globalization. I mean, it's not one and the other. It's really a balance between the two. So that's one area that I really hope that the US and Tufts University and other universities really bring the evidence to showcase that is better for those countries for eradicating hunger, ending poverty, although it doesn't seem to be happening by 2030, but at least a few years after 2030. And maybe my final point, it's really on embracing the fact that we need to do more research to explain to the people how the things works. People, even if there is a bit of mistrust sometimes, there is still the majority of people, when a scientist talk, they really believe that scientist. So speaking up about the need to do those things, to really bring food as medicine globally, to work together and to really cut on malnutrition, particularly for children. I mean, we can't really, the numbers are very high. So we can't really cut on all of it, but maybe starting from the 1,000 days and going beyond really focusing on women and focusing on pregnant women and children and try to eradicate the number little by little. It's very important. And I think really the concept you have here has to be spoken about. The evidence has to go beyond the US and the program has to go beyond the US. Thank you.
Well, you have a platform at the United Nations to help really, with the member states make that happen. And healthcare systems in low-income countries have really shifted to be thinking about supplementation and other things. Food is medicine, helping support those farmers, giving them a market, through the healthcare system could be really a major advance for low-income and middle-income nations. Yeah.
Like the school meals made it. The school meals, it's really a recognized program that really has a huge impact on malnutrition. I could see the food is medicine the same way school meals have gone beyond borders.
And supporting biodiversity and women farmers and other things, yeah. Robert.
We need to do two things at once, and they both relate to affordability. We need to keep staple foods affordable. There's new work from Marie Ruel and Derek Hetty at IFPRI, Food Policy Research Institute, that shows the tight linkage between staple food prices and child wasting and other increases in child stunting. This basically confirms what Martin Blom told us, 30-some years ago in Bangladesh. So why? Because the great irony is that when staple foods become more expensive, people eat more of them, and they quit eating fruits and vegetables and fish and dairy and eggs and all the things we want them to eat for a quality, nutritious diet. But we need to pair that with making those quality, nutritious foods more affordable. My friend and colleague Sean Baker likes to say that an egg in Niamey costs 15 times what an egg in the United States does. And so we've got to figure out a way to change that. I think there's a good answer. I think we see in places like Africa the growth of income in cities and towns and the demand for quality, diverse diets. We need to figure out how to help Africa's farmers meet those demands, or Asia's, or to meet those demands, make those foods safe and affordable. And that way we not only raise poverty, help bring people out of poverty, we also improve nutrition everywhere, rural and urban, and we can possibly mitigate against the impacts of negative dietary transitions, right? I mean, that's from cheap salt and sugar and oil. These are not. I'm not talking about salt and sugar and oil. I'm talking fish and dairy and legumes, a whole range of things. And I would add other, as Ismahan said, other crops. And our special envoy on food security, Carrie Fowler, is a passionate advocate for trying to diversify into both more nutritious crops that may have been overlooked or underinvested in, but also climate resilient crops. And then finally, I would say I would love to see some targets. Like, could we think about high quality, safe, complementary foods as a public good where government and industry came together to make those safe and affordable? Will Masters has studied this. There he is. And the problem is they're unsafe. They're all over the map in terms of fortificants. But we know that families want them. Women want them. They need them to get children through this critical period when there's perhaps not as much breastfeeding as is optimal. So that whole complementary piece. So making those safe and affordable is a target of opportunity, I'd like to think. But it's doing both these two things together. And what we often think about one or the other, staples or the big fields of grain that you talked about, or diverse quality foods. They both belong in the picture.
Well, we have, I think, 5 economists at the Friedman School, and we need more economists studying this, because I think the answer to at least the second one is to show the value, the true cost, the true beneficial cost of those healthy foods, not only for improved human productivity and improved incomes, improved IQ, lower healthcare spending, and even in low-income countries, lower chronic disease costs, right, for those foods, let alone lower stunting. There's huge economic consequences to these diet-related diseases, malnutrition in all forms, and that is not usually factored in. And then if you add climate and water and soil costs and the cost of those things, there's actually monetary cost of those. So if we can get those economic costs factored in, then we can start lowering the price of those foods. So briefly, because I want to be able, we get sure to other questions. I'll ask the 2 questions at once and just brief answers for both. But maybe start back to you, Robert. What barriers have you faced in your efforts to advance nutrition security?
Yeah, I keep naming people in the audience, and I'm going to name another.
As barriers? Okay. This will be fun. Okay.
Oh, Patrick, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to use you and barrier in the same name, in the same sentence. So when we had a new administration come in after President Trump was elected, I was thinking, what do we do to give them something to own, a hook? And so I called Patrick, right, and say, what should we do? And we talked about iron and iron deficiency anemia, and which has, like stunting, it's a complex problem, right? It's not all about diet, but diet plays a big role. And so I tried to sell this, and some people thought, hey, because I said these are foods, first of all, women suffer disproportionately, and children, from iron deficiency anemia. So if you want to empower women, help them not be anemic too. That's important. But so it was about quality diets and getting better, more iron, and you bring along other micronutrients too, let's face it, zinc and others. And you know who shot it down were the nutritionists. They said that we couldn't show a clear, direct line. My colleagues that were nutritionists said, well, that we won't be able to prove that. But nutrition, we already know, is not just one sector. So it's getting the food basket better and more nutritious and more affordable. And then we also need all the nutrition-specific interventions, healthcare, and the water and sanitation, and as Lawrence Haddad and Lisa Smith told us, empowered women and educated women that can make better decisions. So that was one thing that I still want to tilt at that windmill, and maybe people in this room can help me do it, because there must be a way that the perfect doesn't become the enemy of the good. And then I would say one challenge that's still there is how to really selectively reach women and adolescent girls. It's the adolescent girls in particular. We have a lot of interventions, children, right? But it less as you get older. So I think that's one we still need creative people like all of you helping us think that through.
Yeah. Well, in the United States, if you look at the healthy eating index, the healthiest diets are under age 2 and over age 75. And the worst diets are in adolescent boys and girls. And so it's true in all nations as a major challenge. So Sarah and Ismail, very briefly, so we can get time for audience questions. What is one example of a really successful effort that you've seen that you would love to see scaled? Sarah.
All right.
It could be
this is
government, it could be private sector, whatever you like.
shameless plug.
Yeah.
It was the privilege of a lifetime to be a part of the initial nutrition security effort at USDA. I've never seen anything like it. Federal government, many people think it's slow and it's bureaucratic and it doesn't move. It can move. It can be nimble when you've got the right people at the top who are committed and want to see it happen. And then as a part of, a much bigger piece than the White House conference, it was so exciting. So many of you in this room were involved in it. And it has really sparked so much activity. And to the barriers question, I'll just say very briefly, I think the biggest barriers are silos and lack of coordination. There are limited dollars in this space. And if we can't work together, and if we can't figure out how to get out of our own way and reach across the table and talk to people that are in different parts of the same question, we're not going to be able to maximize scarce resources. And so it's really important that we talk to those who are not necessarily in our field, but who may have the necessary solutions.
Yeah, great. Good plug for this summit. Yeah, Ismail.
So from my side, I remember when I was the DG of ICBA, I went in a
What's the DG? Yeah.
of ICBA, International Center Biosaline Agriculture. It's a small research center in Dubai, in the United Arab Emirates. And I remember for the first time I saw quinoa plant myself. It was very hot. It's a sandy place, very little water. And I saw really the panicle quite big with a lot of seeds. So I got really interested in quinoa. So we started a breeding program for quinoa in the desert. And then I had the chance to visit quinoa farmers in Peru in 2013. And I saw really where it works, where it is planted. So it's in a highland, 3,000 meters, completely compact soil. You think nothing will come out of it. So then I got really interested in quinoa. And then we start breeding program and we start introducing it to what we call marginal agriculture areas. So we did Egypt, Morocco, we did Cameroon, Senegal, Uzbekistan, so many countries. So, and then we teamed up with FAO. At that time, it was 2013, Year of Quinoa. And then with FAO, we were able really to get the reach out of our varieties to much more countries. It was tried in South Spain. And then really, it was very interesting for people to understand it's not introducing a species that is not part of the system, it's introducing it in area where wheat and barley cannot produce enough. So it's a very short cycle, about 3 months, that really produce with 100 millimeters, that really can take heat, and that is really high value in the market at that time, and still the case now. So it's really, I'm very proud of it. I can do it again with 1,000 other species. And I think we have a chance now with the millet, because the millet initiative, it's many, many species. And by the way, G20 just approved last week to start a new initiative called Maharishi, that is around millet and promoting of millet. But as I was going through that path, I got to understand better the issues on the market, the issues of creating a local market and local need, and also the issue that happened in Peru, whereby quinoa might become the fancy superfood for people, but then the people in Peru could not afford it anymore. And then Peru got a huge problem of malnutrition, a lot of miscarriage in women that are pregnant. So sometimes really we have to look at it globally, and particularly countries should take the right policies in place to protect their farmers and their communities.
Thank you. So, thank you. We have about 10 minutes for questions. I hope someone will bring me some curated online questions if there are. online questions. But if you have a question, raise your hand, and for any, and just introduce yourself and who your question is directed to, and someone will bring you a microphone. While we're waiting for people to think about questions, I have one. Sarah, can you talk a little bit about your current role at Harvard? It's just listed as special projects, but I know there's something very specific you're working on.
Indeed. I'm so surprised this group doesn't have questions. Oh, there's one.
They will, yeah.
So I'll be brief, so there's a chance for the question. So I have been in the nutrition policy world for a very, very long time and have enjoyed it because my North Star is helping people achieve a better quality of life and greater well-being. So had the opportunity to shift gears a bit with the same North Star, and with this new post that I'm in charge of implementing a $100 million endowment that Harvard created to address its legacy of slavery. And there was a report that came out a year ago today, actually, which described its financial entanglements, its intellectual entanglements, and the fact that there were a little under 70 people enslaved by Harvard faculty, leaders, and staff. So it's a very challenging project. It has stretched me in ways that I've never been stretched before. And I do think there's a portion of this that is food justice. So haven't gotten there yet, but I'm guessing I will reach out to some of you once we do.
Thank you. Gary.
Gary Bergstrom here. One area I...
Just hold the mic really close to your mouth. Yeah, it doesn't have a big range. Yeah.
I would be very interested, since we have presumably common objectives of higher quality, more nutritious food, but also making it affordable. If we could focus a little bit more on the incentive structure for not only farmers, but the whole distribution channel, both in the U.S. and internationally, if we're going to get from here to there.
Yeah, so the question is about how do we shift, either create new or use existing incentive structures to get high quality, nourishing food and make it more affordable and accessible. So for any of the panelists.
Well, I'll just say that the issue of trade plays out in many ways. But if you think about Africa with, 56 countries or something, the barriers to trade have traditionally been very high. And by reducing those barriers so that if one country has a bad season and another has a good, the surplus maize can move, but not just maize, right? I mean, I think by opening some of these channels, and some of you have heard the phrase food sovereignty, and when we have a price shock the way we've had in the last year or two, people become very aware of vulnerabilities associated with relying on imports. I like to think about self-reliance, not necessarily not self-sufficiency, but I think if we do it right and we understand some of the economics that Dari referred to, we can use that trade agenda in ways that builds confidence, but also perhaps provides wider consumer choice. Less seasonality. The presence of markets themselves increase resilience in terms of just letting people make shifts so that they can have a better diet. But it's a thought-provoking question. I'm sure there's other insights, but just share that.
Maybe to add on, I think there's a lot of inefficiencies in the global market. And maybe the way we are doing traceability for food safety, for example, we should do the same to just understand how the products are going around. There is one statistic that is troubling from WTO, the World Trade Organization, that says any commodity passes the borders twice. So basically, you have a wheat, it goes and come back as, I don't know, crackers or something, and then goes again, or you got a potato and then you got the starch. So there is a lot of movement. And there isn't enough regulation really to make it more efficient. And the only way to do it is really by working with the private sector, mostly and multinational, to understand that movement and maybe bring in it a little bit more efficiency. And maybe it's going to happen because of the climate change and the emission targets hopefully it's going to happen. But WTO numbers does not seems positive, and definitely engaging the private sector and particularly multinationals to understand really how to make it more efficient could help us a lot in reducing waste and also in reducing the emission.
And I'll just say as the moderator from given the Food is Medicine Summit that in the US, we have to channel Willie Sutton, the bank robber, who when asked why he robs banks, he says, because that's where the money is. And so if we want to fix, make food, healthier food more affordable in the United States, we have to go where the money is, which is in healthcare and in the federal nutrition programs. If we make those two programs incentivize and pay for healthy food, we change the incentives and we increase, affordability and access across the whole U.S. market. So I think those are two big levers. Other questions? Over here, we have a question. And I think after this, we'll have time. If there's any online questions, please bring them to me. I think we might have time for one more quick one.
Hi, Christine Going from the VA. I guess I'd ask all of you, do you feel like we have the current infrastructure to support innovation or disruptors in this field? So with the waivers coming and encouraging people to try to be creative and find the results that work in your region, but does the current infrastructure support us rising up those innovators? And so I'm curious, maybe I'm directing it to Sarah, but that's kind of what I'm thinking about, because again, I think innovation is going to lead us, that old thing, like what got you here won't get you there. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about.
Yeah, that's a great question. So a couple thoughts come to mind. One is a huge challenge that many people are facing right now who are in the social safety net or have been in the social safety net is the end of the public health emergency. And so there is an expectation that because, for example, the continuous Medicaid enrollment that's been in place for 2 years, because that has come to an end, and because other portions of the SNAP program, other flexibilities are coming to an end, that millions of people are going to fall off the rolls. At the same time, what's going to happen at the state level is that re-enrollment process is going to have to kick up for Medicaid. It's also going to have to kick up for SNAP, and it's a huge drain on resources. So how can you do more when you have so much you already have to do? And so there are a lot of administrative challenges right now for these programs which are state administered, and it's going to mean that many people will fall through the cracks. And so what can you all do if you are on the front line, if you are interacting with people who may be eligible for nutrition assistance programs, for Medicaid, encourage those folks to stay enrolled, to get enrolled, because many people don't appreciate the importance of the policy changes that are happening and what it means for them personally. And what's going to happen is that they're going to lose their benefits. This is another reason why it's so important for the private sector to step up, because it often has the ability to be more nimble. It can pilot test things more easily. And there's also opportunities for state government in other ways to really incubate different ideas, to identify what works and allow those things to bubble up. But there's so much creativity in this room, and I agree that innovation is going to be the things that drive them forward. And one of the most important is that when those great ideas happen, they need to get shared widely, not just in your own lane, but in many other lanes who might also benefit.
We have time for one quick question in the back and one quick answer. Yeah.
Thank you. My name is Irene, and I'm a local food entrepreneur here in Boston. I produce out of Commonwealth Kitchen. And so I am just loving the gentleman with the glasses here. My question is, there's a company here that I have a big
She said
crush
gentleman,
on.
so that's over here. Yeah.
There's a company in this audience that I absolutely have a crush on. And it really touches on the lady who's a representative from the VA, innovation. The innovation really that's taking place around addressing food insecurity is on the ground by regular Joes and Jane, Malaika, people from India, people from China, Korea, Africans, immigrants. They spend a lot of money to get into a commercial kitchen. They go through the regulatory FDA requirements to get their foods, the acidification process. It is a massive investment. And so as an entrepreneur who's part of this ecosystem, who relies on you to help me access you or your programs or your resources, because as an entrepreneur, you are wearing 19 million hats, you have the attention span of a gnat, and it is exhausting. So what is it that is available for innovators that are taking place who are actually creating foods that are culturally competent, they're addressing micronutrient deficiencies, and they're actually creating jobs? I've been here for the entire 4 hours, and I haven't really gotten a very good answer from all the experts.
So maybe, Rob, you can talk about the maybe innovation labs briefly, and then I can touch briefly on some U.S. ideas about this, but yeah.
Yeah, well, you've put your finger on one of the problems that we are trying to deal with, especially when we think about the food systems approach, right? And so USAID, through its partnerships with, for example, the Food Systems Innovation Lab here at Tufts, but also we have a food processing lab at Purdue, we have food safety labs. We're trying to figure out how to create a more conducive entrepreneurial space. So, for example, one example is in West Africa, you can get great ascorbic acid fortification with baobab leaves, right? You don't need to buy an expensive fortification. And people like the flavor. It's already used as a condiment. But we're trying to move the needle on that, especially at that more community grassroots level. And there are some good examples. I don't have a lot to pull out right now, but I think you've also pointed out a place where we can do really good north-south learning, because a lot of the skills and opportunities are maybe, if not exactly the same, very similar in terms of what needs to happen.
And I'll say that this has been a big focus of the Friedman School, is how to create and nurture this or help nurture this ecosystem, and entrepreneurs such as yourself. The creation of the Food and Nutrition Innovation Institute and the Innovation Council focused on this Commonwealth Kitchen is a member. We had an independent task force to inform the White House conference, which we're happy to share the link to. And in our report, for what we thought was needed, we had 6 domains of action. Many of our recommended actions were in the final national strategy, but one was, I think, conspicuously missing. We had an entire domain on advancing business innovation. So we put together a series of recommendations for the federal government, just like they're investing in green energy and clean energy, just like they're investing in silicon chips now, just like they invested in the past in railroads and roads and other things. The federal government should create an entire federal strategy to advance food and nutrition innovation. And that was there were some things in the national strategy, but it was mostly missing. So we're hopeful that that can be raised again with this and other administrations to create kind of a national strategy and investment to help entrepreneurs such as yourself. And lastly, I'll make a plug that when we put together an application 3 or 4 years ago with a lot of terrific partners to the Kellogg Foundation for a $20 million grant to do exactly what you're saying, to build an infrastructure with Commonwealth Kitchen and others for legal advice, capital access, market access for food entrepreneurs, particularly those from BIPOC backgrounds. And we made it to kind of a final round, but we didn't get funded. So if anyone has $20 million, come. Yeah.
I would just add one more thing: is the demand for convenience and time saving is not going away. You have urbanization going on all over the world, and people, women especially, need that. There's just time poverty it's in the rural areas, but it's also in urban areas.
So thank you, everyone. Thank you to our winners. Thank you to Oren Hesterman, who's online. And thank you again. So we're right at time, right at 5 o'clock, and so I'm just not gonna. I'm not going to, have long closing remarks. I just want to say thank you to everyone for attending the opening day of the Food is Medicine Summit. We look forward to those of you who are here in person to attend the second day tomorrow. We really, really are so pleased and grateful to be able to honor the amazing Jean Meyer Award recipients and the 4 community organizations. So thank you, everyone. welcome you to the reception and also to meet with our White House colleagues for the next hour. Thank you so much.